Hey y'all, Dennis here, Muddy Water Search and Recovery. We're going to be doing the case layout for Brandon Swanson. This one is going to be a little different. I'm going to be reading the information off of another computer. Brandon disappeared May 14th of 2008. He was 19 years of age. He is missing from Porter, Minnesota. He was 5'6". Shortly after midnight on May 14th of 2008, Brandon of Marshall, Minnesota, drove his car into a ditch on his way home after celebrating the end of spring semester with fellow students from Minnesota West Community and Technical College's Canby campus. Uninjured, he got out and called his parents on his cell phone. Unsure of his exact location, he told them he believed he was near Lynd, L-Y-N-D, and they drove out to pick him up. However, they were unable to locate him. Swanson remained on the phone with them until he went silent 47 minutes later after exclaiming, and please pardon my language here, but he hollered, "Oh shit," and he has not been seen or heard from since. In the morning, his parents reported Swanson missing to the police, who advised him to wait as such behavior was not uncommon for young men his age. Later that day, the circumstances of his disappearance became more complicated when his cell phone record showed that he had been near Porter, which is 25 miles from where Swanson had said that he was, and in a complete different direction. That information led to the discovery of his car near Taunton. It is not known whether Swanson was aware of this discrepancy when he talked to his parents. Foul play has not been ruled out, but it has also been proposed that he might have accidentally fallen into the Yellow Medicine River near where his car was found and drowned, although extensive searches have not found a body. Land searches with dogs have continued in the area for several years. His parents successfully lobbied the state legislators to pass Brandon's Law, which requires that police begin investigations of missing adults promptly. Brandon left Canby for the 30-mile drive home before midnight. Just before 2 a.m., he called his parents on his cell phone, telling them he had driven his Chevy Lumina off the road and into a ditch from which he could not remove the car. He was not hurt and asked them to come to where he was and pick him up. I know some of this is going to repeat itself, but I'm just going to read through this. His parents got into their pickup truck and drove out to where he thought he was, keeping him on the phone despite occasional hang-ups and drops. Brandon stayed with his car and tried to signal them by flashing his lights on and off, but they did not see anything, nor did he see them do the same. Brandon finally gave up and told them he was leaving the car to walk toward lights he could see that led him to believe he was near Lynd, a small town roughly 7 miles southwest of Marshall. He told his father to head for the parking lot of a local bar and wait for him there. Brian began driving there, talking to his son as he did. Shortly after 2:30 a.m., 47 minutes into the call, Brandon suddenly interrupted himself on the phone and said, "Oh shit." He was silent for the remainder of the call until his parents hung up and attempted to call back. Brandon has not been seen or heard from since. The investigation At 6:30 a.m., his parents reported Brandon missing to Lynn police. They were told at first it was hardly unusual for young men that age to stay out all night after the last day of college classes. His mom specifically recalled that one of the officers said it was Brandon's right to be missing. Later that morning, the Lynn police did start a search but found no trace of Brandon in the town or outside of the town. They requested that the office of Lyon County Sheriff assist them. To better focus the search, the sheriff's office obtained Brandon's cell phone records, which revealed that Brandon had been calling from the vicinity of Taunton along State Highway 68, the main route to Canby, northwest of Marshall, 25 miles from Lynn. Searching in that area, deputies discovered Brandon's abandoned car in a ditch off a gravel road along the Lincoln County line, a mile north of Highway 68, bringing the office of that county sheriff, Jack Vlinsky, into the investigation as well. He told the media that the Lumina had gotten hung up on the top of an incline at the edge of the road, not seriously enough to damage the car, but enough to keep the wheels from touching the ground on that side. There was nothing else found amiss with the car, and due to the grass and gravel in the area surrounding it, there were no tracks and thus no way to tell what direction Brandon might have started walking. His cell phone call had been routed through a tower at the intersection of County Routes 3 and 10 near Minota, another town along Highway 68. By May 15th, the call had been determined to have come from within 5 miles of the tower. Searchers were concentrating their efforts there. Since part of that circle included Yellow Medicine River to the north, authorities from that jurisdiction also took part. It was noted that from the area, the red light atop the Taunton grain elevator could be seen. He thought that it was possible the red light Brandon had seen led to believe Lynn was in walking distance. Ground searches were being complemented with a flyover by an aerial team. Search dogs were also brought in from the Twin Cities. A team of bloodhounds from nearby South Dakota picked up a 3-mile trail that largely followed the field roads northwest to an abandoned farm, then along the Yellow Medicine River to a point it appeared to enter the stream. Brandon had mentioned passing fences and hearing nearby water, his father recalled. On the theory that Brandon might have drowned, boats from the state's Department of Natural Resources were deployed along the river and gates were installed. In some areas in Lincoln County, the water had been 10 feet deep on the morning of his disappearance, but the water levels had gone down since then. Deputies also walked the river's banks, and horses and ATVs were deployed in the surrounding area. However, it was ruled out to do a more organized, extensive ground search. Later searches, and these are the topics that we're reading from on here. After the original search found no sign of Brandon, most efforts were discontinued. The sheriff continued to walk the 2 miles of the Yellow Medicine in that area every day for 30 days. The family left their porch light on all night, every night, as a symbol of their hope that Brandon would eventually return or be found, and they still continued to do so. Searches resumed later that fall after fields planted shortly after the disappearance had been harvested. Dogs on those searches continued to follow scents of human remains into an area northwest of Porter that had not been searched earlier. Efforts picked up again in the spring after snow melted, but before planting, a cycle that continued through 2011. By that time, 122 square miles had been searched. In 2010, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension took over as lead agency on the case. It set up a tip line, and by 2015, 90 leads had been reported that way. By that point, when official searches resumed, the area of interest had moved towards Mud Creek, a tributary to the Yellow Medicine north and northwest of Porter. Some theories. While the trail followed by one of the dogs went to the Yellow Medicine, and despite her son's last known words, his mother does not think he drowned there. After following the scent to the water, that dog continued up across the other side and along that riverbank to another gravel road, where it continued north towards the Yellow Medicine County line and ended. She said there really is nothing to indicate he's in the river. His dad also recalled that any alcohol his son had consumed earlier in the evening, notwithstanding, he did not seem disoriented or confused during their phone conversation. If Brandon is still alive, there are other possibilities, although they appear remote. He could have intentionally disappeared, but his parents do not believe he would have done that. Officials said he cannot rule out foul play, even though there is no evidence of foul play at this point. He said someone could have been in the shadows and they got him that way, he speculated. Now a little bit about Brandon's law. After the searches, his mom was still struck by the initial response of the Lynn police that her son had a right to be missing when she told them how old he was. "I'm his mother and I knew something was horribly wrong," she recalled later. She and her husband began lobbying for changes in state law that would require an investigation into the case of a missing adult to begin as soon as it is reported, much as was already required in cases of possible abducted children. She met with Marty Sheffert, minority leader of the State House of Representatives at the time, whose district included Marshall, in a local restaurant. The two talked about the problems she had experienced with the police when she reported her son missing. She knew it wouldn't help in her son's case, but that it could help others in the future. He introduced a bill called Brandon's Law that would make the required change by amending the law governing the state's existing missing child program to change the word child to person. He recalled considerable resistance at first from the state's law enforcement community as it was developed in committee. Part of it had to do with privacy, especially regarding cell phones. Technology was emerging then, so there were discussions about privacy and when they can ping you and when they can't. Dennis Frederickson introduced a companion bill in the state Senate, and it passed both houses, passing the House unanimously, in May of 2009. Governor Tim Pawlenty signed it into law with Brandon's family in attendance at the ceremony. The effect of the change also required that police, in addition to determining that their preliminary investigation that the reported person is indeed missing, determine whether that person is potentially in a dangerous circumstance. They must also notify other nearby law enforcement agencies promptly. Brandon's Law also clarifies that the agency taking the report is the lead agency investigating the case. The absence of that distinction had created some problems in the later phases of the initial search when 3 different counties were involved. Police were no longer allowed to refuse a report based on an initial belief that no criminal activity was involved, in brevity of the interval since the person was last seen, the possibility that the person may have intentionally disappeared, or the lack of relationship between the missing person and the reporter. Following the governor's signature, the law took effect at the beginning of July of 2009. 4 other states have passed similar laws, and it was considered one of the most important bills the governor authorized in his 14 years, and he says it will save lives. I have to 100% agree with that governor. I believe that every state should have something very, very similar to that, simply because I do believe that would help save lives. So with that, if you have any information on this case, I will get the number to the agency investigating put down in the descriptions. I will also have our contact information down there. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the family, and we will be doing everything we can to try to help bring Brandon home. So with that, you guys stay safe, and we'll catch you down the road.